In this video, we are reacting to a video that Mr. Vast Sky did with our good friend, Mr. Theme Park Wizard. They had the honor and the privilege to interview composer, music director, and arranger of Wondrous Journeys, Mr. Christopher Lennertz. Fantastic interview. We're going to break it down, talk about it. It was absolutely incredible. Up next on OG 55. Welcome aboard to another episode of OG 55. I have my producer, my good friend, my family, my brother, Dr. Dre, the fire marshal, producer Dre, host of the Freshly Squeezed show here on the channel. Dre, welcome back.
Hey, I am happy to be back. This was, I'm going to be honest, OG, this was a pretty fun one. And when you came to me with the idea, I was like, oh, yeah, we got to do that because there was so much stuff that we didn't say that could, add some context for folks, that could kind of expand the behind the scenes stories for this show. I think it's just fantastic. So I do appreciate the opportunity for to do that. This is going to be fantastic. To kick things off here, if you guys want to follow me, you can go ahead and do so right down there at Vash Sky. Just go ahead and type that in. Should pop up for, as Christine Waysons McCarthy would say, for all the
robust
discussions right there. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now at Orange Go 55, where you can find my show, Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. All right, so
there we go.
Gee, you want to get into it?
Let's dive right in. So Christopher Lennertz, like I said, is a composer, the arranger, the music director of this phenomenal show that Dre and I have been raving about since we saw it. We love Wondrous Journeys. So,
oh my God.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. And it's amazing that you and Theme Park Wizard were able to sit down with him and have this fantastic interview. Now, before we dive into it, though, I do want to say I will be linking Theme Park Wizard's full video with you at the very end of this video. Please check it out. Subscribe to Theme Park Wizard if you have not already. He is awesome, friend of the channel.
Absolutely, 100%. So I got to give it to Wizard. Wizard was the one that reached out and said, hey, let's see if I can get him on. And sure enough, he responded and said, oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead. I'll call in, And as it turned out, he actually called in while he was going through LA traffic. So as he told us, hey, I got time. So we made his commute just a little bit sweeter, I think. But we'll go ahead and let him speak right here. We'll skip in a little bit. Hey, we know the players. So let's play the game here. Let's do it. Thank you so much for taking us up on finding out what happened here, because Wondrous Journeys, I don't know if you've heard the reviews. I don't know if you've seen the social media presence. It is just getting unbelievable reviews from the entire Disney community. It's very rare to have a show debut at Disneyland that gets this much universal praise, and so we want to thank you for everything, because this show is truly phenomenal.
Fantastic.
Oh, well, thank you. I have seen some of that. I appreciate that, and it's like that's why we do all this, is to really, like, we do it for the fans and for the people who, where Disney is so important in their lives. So it's glad to, for us, we were really glad to see that it connected with them so much.
Can we pause it real quick, Dre?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, and I know it's like kind of early, but I think this was a very, very important point that Christopher made here.
Yeah,
and I really like what he said. We do it for the fans. We do it for the folks that have the passion for this. That's important. We've seen a lot of examples in Hollywood and what have you, where a lot of creatives kind of lose sight of that, right? Like, this is for the fans, and right out the gate. I mean, we're not even like 30 seconds into it. He's acknowledging this is for the fans. I love that.
I love that too. And that's why I played that first part, because I could easily skip over that, right? Get right into it. But I thought that was really, really important. I'm so glad, OG, you brought that out, because that's what I was trying to highlight right there. It's for the fans. So already off to a good start. Absolutely. Ethan, take it away.
Man, like
first of all, I'm curious, how long does it take to develop a show like this? Like, how long were you working on this show?
I mean, I probably was working on this show it was almost a year. It was probably about 10 months. From the very initial conversations, at least the conceptual conversation was about 10 months. And there were lots of people working long before I came on board as well. So.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I believe, what is it? Casey Wilkerson, Jordan Peterson. I just want to acknowledge who those guys are because we didn't in the show. Casey Wilkerson was the principal media designer, Disney Live Entertainment, and Jordan Peterson was the show director, Disney Live Entertainment Director, Wondrous Journey. So that was his official title on the program here, right here. Just want to go ahead and give credit where it's due.
Perfect.
You have some others who were working on this, obviously, and that's what they said about it. Around a year, which was a stunning number to actually hear, because
that's a long time.
A very, very long time. What was the conception? What was the pitch? What was the thing that you were doing? Did it stay consistent with that? Did you bring that vision to life, do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, the pitch really came initially to me from Jordan Peterson. Okay. And it was we knew from the very get-go that, we had sort of an obligation and an edict to make sure we touched every single animated film from Disney, because it was the 100th anniversary and we wanted to make sure we did that. So we knew that was definitely going to be involved. And from a very, very early pitch, the plan was to really bring to life, not only have it be the story of Disney animation, so making sure we touched all the properties, making sure we told a journey of how that developed and how things, went from the simplest, starting it at Steamboat Willie, and starting it the early nostalgia of Snow White and the classics, but going all the way up to the most recent, and even including the upcoming film Wish. We knew we wanted to touch on all that, but the other thing that Jordan was very, very serious about was making sure that we gave life and a respect to the actual animators, to the artists that made this all happen and came to life. And so from the early stages, there was always so much talk about, we want to have sketches, we want to have we were working with Disney Animation to show how the butterflies would come to life, how individual character sketches. So it wasn't always going to be a finished sketch of or a finished animation of Moana. There was going to also be concept art and initial sketches and pencil sketches of all different characters. And I think that's one of the things he wanted to bring everyone behind the scenes, and really have them appreciate and just show so much love and gratitude for the artists and the amazing talent that all of these amazing women and men have had over so many years with Disney.
Can we pause there just for a second?
Yeah, please.
This is fascinating. Now that's one of my favorite things of this show is when you see like those sketches of like Snow White on the castle. I'm getting goosebumps even talking about it. And Mickey Mouse and all those characters. It's surreal. And I think, like we talked about it, Dre, a lot, where it's like this show invokes a lot of Walt Disney without showing or even hearing from Walt Disney. And I think that little touches like this that Christopher's talking about, where we did unfinished art to kind of pay tribute to the men and women behind the scenes, the creatives, the talent, that kind of stuff. It really does resonate with people, even if not consciously. It hits you subconsciously. And I think that might be part of the reason why, like we've talked about so many times, where we feel Walt in this show, but he's not there. Why are we feeling it? I think it's details like this as to why we are feeling that.
Absolutely. And it's because you really easily, if you're going to say, hey, we want to do a dedication to all 62 animated films, including Wish, by the way, which comes out November 22nd, which might have some competition in that month, by the way. That's a very interesting story, but we'll get into that on a different day. If you're going to tell that story, well, you can just have a clip show. I mean, that's a very kind of straightforward, easy thing to do there, just mashing all that you can and you go from there. But not only did they want to tell a story with all of this stuff, they wanted to tell the story of the animator themselves, which is a really kind of interesting way to go about it. I mean, I OG, I made the comment when I saw it. It's like, man, it's like you're looking over the animator's shoulder when you're in the Hyperion studio, when you're seeing Snow White, be cast as a not in color initially, but as a concept sketch, right? It just takes you right in there, and you see how this kind of beautiful stuff comes to life. And to transition from Snow White into Sleeping Beauty is, well, it's perfect, right? Because Sleeping Beauty, you've got that beautiful Ivan Earl art style, but it's so much of an evolution of that animation story. He mentions butterflies in here, and it's interesting. The Wondrous Journeys fact sheet provided by Disneyland News says this about it: butterflies appear as a recurring motif throughout Wondrous Journeys, representing a physical manifestation of wonder. Butterflies are a wonder of nature and show up regularly in Walt Disney Animation Studios films, from Alice in Wonderland and Winnie the Pooh to Tarzan to Encanto. So there's definitely kind of this butterfly motif kind of going through there. Very interesting to use that. And this was definitely a collaboration with Disney Live Entertainment and Disney Animation Studios. So new animation was actually rendered for this, and it creates a phenomenal piece.
It really does. And I love to kind of go back to the sketching.
Sure.
There's something very kind of raw about like sketches and like that kind of rough animation.
Yeah.
It's very much like the animators or the artists kind of like a little bit of their soul in that piece. It's not polished. It's very much like this kind of rough and raw kind of interpretation, and then when you put that on the castle, 100 years worth of all these films. I mean, you're talking sketches from like the 9 old men that are on that castle in 2023. It blows my mind, and it's just I love the mindset that Christopher had going into this show. Truly impressed. Absolutely.
There's some footage. You saw it on the Disney Parks Disney 100 live stream on YouTube. Unfortunately, Disney Parks took that down, but there are copies of it on YouTube that you can search for very easily. If you go to like the latter quadrant of that, you'll see a Wondrous Journey segment. It'll put names behind the faces for sure, right? But one of the things they did was they brought in a lot of the animators throughout the years. Not just new ones, but old ones as well. I believe there was a gentleman in his 70s, if I'm not mistaken, who had worked with Walt and with some of the projects near the kind of the Silver Age, right? And invited them down to see this show, and they were blown away. I mean, they were, drawn to tears and so forth, because it's, it really does tell their story as much as it tells the story of 100 years of animation.
Beautiful. Let's continue.
Yep. Here we go.
So that was really the initial pitch, but then the next part of the pitch, which came from Jordan and from Michael Young, one of our producers, was the idea that we want to go on this artist's journey. That much unlike a lot of the other Disney shows, our villain, if there was a villain, is not going to be an actual villain. Our villain in our show and our story that we take the audience on is self-doubt. And so it's really brought to life with both music and these amazing quotes that were, handpicked from these many films that we could choose from to really tell that story of, a blossoming young artist who doubts herself, and then, realizes that to follow that dream is really truth and is really that freedom, and that's where you'll find success, and that's where you'll be able to spread joy and happiness. And so it was really a great pitch, and this was probably back last February that we heard this. Like, we want to take our listeners, our audience, the people standing on Main Street and in front of the castle, we want to take them on a journey where they feel like they go up, they go on a journey, they realize what's behind the animations, but also really in their heart they feel like they can experience the self-doubt that any artist might have, but then get beyond that and really, succeed, like, as in a Hercules or a Moana would, to really, push past yourself down and realize that you can do it and you can bring to life something that is, so magical that it literally, affects everyone else's lives in the whole world. And that was really the point of the show.
Wow,
and just incredible. Just incredible. I didn't really pick up on the self-doubt being a villain, but you're totally right. It's definitely I suppose the antagonist of the piece, and it's just it's definitely self-doubt is definitely a theme, and I picked up on that, but I didn't really think of it in terms of it being a villain. I think that was a very interesting kind of way to go about it. Now that you see that, it's definitely there.
Well, and the thing, this is interesting. This is kind of like a little bit of I'm going to digress a little bit, but kind of not really.
Sure.
We talk when we talk corporate Disney, right? We talk a lot about like who should be the next CEO of Disney. Should they look from outside the company or hire from within, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of conversations about that. Like, well, when you hire from within, they understand Disney more than someone from the outside.
Right.
Christopher Lennertz is from the outside. And he does a lot of stuff that's not Disney. He did that show on Amazon Prime, The Boys, which I'm a huge fan of. I love that show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a fantastic show. But he's coming from the outside. He works on a lot of non-Disney stuff, and yet I'm hearing this gentleman talk about Disney, and I have. It's very rare do I hear creatives from even Disney understand the studio like how he understands it.
Yeah.
I mean, from the beginning, he's completely conveyed what this means to people, the fans, what he's trying to express, and it's perfectly in line with what a show about the studio should be. He gets it. He freaking gets it. It reminds me a lot of like Howard Ashman, again, another outsider who came in. He came in from the outside, but when he got inside Disney, he understood Disney so well. Yeah, I mean, Roy Disney referred to Howard Ashman as another Walt, right?
Yeah, I mean that's high praise.
It's very high praise, and it's just and Christopher Lennertz comes in here as another outsider, and he's hitting the ground running and understands what Disney is like to a T, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
Absolutely, and it's you're totally right about that. When we hear about bringing in an outsider, it's like, ooh, are they going to get it? Sometimes they get it more than the people on the inside. Why is that the case? Because you kind of become institutionalized, right? You kind of become jaded, or you become a little bit esoteric when you're looked from the outside looking in, right? Sometimes you need that outside presence just to kind of get back on course a little bit as a course correction. And you're going to have people watch this show who have been Disney fans for 25, 30, 50 years, whatever. But then you're going to have some fans, or I should say guests, who come in here that maybe are not fans, right? Maybe are not, deep in the Disney culture, right? And you have to appeal to those as well. And sometimes somebody on the outside that can look at it from that perspective can be very beneficial, which in this case, I think it absolutely was.
Oh, absolutely. Let's continue.
Oh, you got it. Absolutely phenomenal. I think, Ethan, if I could speak for you for just one moment, I think one of our favorite parts of this entire piece.
Yes, I was going to ask about that one.
Okay, is the quartet, right? This mashup of 4 songs: Go the Distance from Hercules, Belle, the reprise of, if I'm not mistaken, from Beauty and the Beast, How Far I'll Go from Moana, and Out There from Hunchback of Notre Dame. This mashup of songs and how they're so disparate. Different keys, even. I mean, where did where that? What challenges did that actually bring with it? How'd you guys do that? And maybe if there's an inspiration for that, that would be amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, the inspiration of it came early on when I was talking to Jordan. I said because we were going to use different quotes and different, and different clips from Disney animation, but we weren't going to necessarily go chronological order. We weren't trying to tell a story in order. We were trying to tell a new story. I said we really need to do that with lyrics and songs as well, and we need to use lines that already exist and put them together in new ways and put different characters together, sometimes having, different ages and genders and styles of music telling our story to tell this new story. And I said one of the things that will allow us to do that is to really use this technique, which it's in theater it's called a quodlibet.
Okay.
But which means a bunch of stuff happening at once from different songs. But what Lin-Manuel always calls it, he and Alex Lackmore always say it's an all skate. And at the end of the first act in so many musicals, whether it be Les Mis or Hamilton or whatever, you'll hear usually it's a really big Act 1 closer that has snippets of all of the songs from Act 1, all put together, and with the characters coming back and basically reminding the audience all of the different conflicts that are going on in the play before you take an intermission and then come back and see those conflicts resolved. So what we decided is this quartet was going to kind of act as our Act 1 closer, and we knew we wanted it to be big, but we started looking. We started saying what multiple of songs can we put together and tell this story in a way that it hasn't been told before, so it feels like a new story. And then we really started going in and looking at which lines of which lyrics sort of fit in, and it's really the originally I think in our story discussions it was the heading of this section was called leaping, and it was supposed to be when any hero sets out on their journey to find something greater than themselves. Right. And so we really said, we're going to take the best lines from all of these songs and put them, or from a bunch of songs, and put them together as if we were a group of heroes going on this journey, and people will be able to relate to one or all of the characters. So that was sort of the first thing we decided we were going to do. And then the next thing that we decided, there've been a lot of a lot of medleys and mashups. I think the biggest was probably a trio that a lot of people know really well.
Speaking of that trio right there, I think he's referring to this one from. I cannot play that music, but I think we're talking about this right here, which is I believe from 1995. I want to say, and Amazement, which used to play at the Fantasyland Theater. This one's a famous one. Features Pocahontas, as you just saw, Hercules, and later on, let's see if we can find him. Quasimodo. So that's the thing that kind of comes to mind, at first, just because it features some of those same characters. Yeah. But they went in a different direction with it, as you'll hear. But I wanted to. It's almost like the "I Want" song here, right? For like any Disney animated film, you have to start out somewhere for your characters so that they can achieve something like that either throughout the course of the picture or at the end. And Howard Ashman described this part of your world, for example, right? That's what she wants. That's what she, Ariel wants to accomplish throughout that scene right there. So and then you have Jeffrey, Katzenberg wanting to take that out at one point. It's like, wait a minute, that disturbs the whole film. You can't do that. Right. But if you're going to tell a story, you kind of need that, right, in order to have something that flows. And I think they do it brilliantly here, as you'll hear. But OG, go ahead.
Well, yeah, and the thing I love too is, and he does it in this scene for sure with Belle and Hunchback and Moana and all that, right? He does it here where he's weaving the lyrics and the animation together, but he does it really throughout the entire show. Sometimes it'll be the music for one movie, but the visuals are to 3 other movies, right? And it's this interweaving and kind of mixing of all this stuff that turns the original art into new art, right? Yes. As opposed to just taking, okay, we're going to take 6 clips and we're just going to play them back to back, right? As opposed to doing that, you're creating your own art by interweaving and mixing and doing what he has done so brilliantly with this. Look, I mean, he explains it with this one scene. He's taking scenes of or audio or whatever from various films as a hero's kind of that first step in the hero's journey. Right. There's a story behind it. It's not just he's not just taking songs and cut and pasting them onto the soundtrack. He's creating his own stories through the lyrics and the music of these various films. And it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, I just can't get enough of this. And the more I hear his mindset behind it, the more I fall in love with the show even more. It's absolutely incredible.
150%. It's just the level of craft, the artistry here.
Yes.
A lot of people don't think about this. A lot of people just say, they're just, putting it in a blender and there you go. No, it takes a long time to put this stuff together by some very smart people who know how to do it. And, we'll let him speak on it.
Yep.
And there's certainly a lot of duets where they take, two songs put together. So we knew we wanted to one up that. We said we have to do 4. And then the other thing I said, I really want to make sure that it's not all one composer, and it's not all one era of Disney. So I said, I said it can't all be Alan. And I've worked with Alan for almost a decade now on a lot of different things, including Gallivant and a couple of films and things like that. And it'd be easy to make a great quartet with just Menken songs.
Yeah.
And we said it can't just be that. It has to be Alan, it has to be other, lyricists and writers, and it has to be disparate characters and different eras of Disney entertainment. So we started really looking into, what songs would fit together really, really well and be really fun to hear together in a way, like if you were going to see a music festival and you were trying to feel what would my favorite bands be that kind of go together, and could you imagine a whole day long where you had, Elton John and U2 and Dr. Dre and Stevie Wonder or something like. So we were trying to think of what would go really well together, and we knew it couldn't all be princesses, and it couldn't all be princes or young, Hercules kind of heroes. It needed to be all across the board. And so we said, we should definitely try to include Quasi, partially because that's one of the most amazing songs I think ever written for theater or movies. And that's one of Alan's most beautiful, beautiful songs and melodies.
Unbelievable. Yes, I think it was Hunchback of Notre Dame was Casey Wilkerson's favorite film. Also, fun fact, Michael Eisner's favorite film as well.
Michael Eisner has good taste in animated films, and that film, I love that movie because I've said it on the channel a lot. I think a lot of times animation talks down to audiences. They talk down to children, and one of the things I love so much about Walt Disney and his work is that he didn't do that. He's gonna kill Bambi's mother, right? In that film. I mean, he as traumatizing as it is, but the thing is that as traumatizing and as deeply sad that was, he didn't he understood that, hey, you know what, the younger kids in the audience can handle this, right? He didn't talk down to them. Lion King, same thing. There's a lot of heavy stuff in that movie, Right. Hunchback was a really dark movie. Didn't talk down to the audience. I love that. That's one of my favorite things about Hunchback is that it wasn't afraid to go super, super dark. It didn't have to kiddify it. It respected the audience's intelligence, and it was absolutely a masterpiece.
Post Jeffrey Katzenberg world, so they would do things that were, kind of against his grain, let's say. He had a real big thing about facial hair. Oh, you can't have facial hair in characters because that's a villain, right? So you see Phoebus, and he has facial hair, right? And that's a little bit different. And some heavy material right there. But yes, it treats its audience with respect, and it tells an endearing story that is, it is relevant for any age at any time. And it's just so... That's a remarkable piece for sure. Glad they got that into Wondrous Journeys because hearing a little Hunchback in the Park, it's nice.
Obviously Belle is a huge favorite but it's also got that amazing, I want adventure in the great white summer. Like, that is one of the most amazing lines ever written by the amazing Howard Ashman, of course.
Of course.
And it's just, we felt like we had to include that. Okay, so now we knew we wanted to include, Out There. We knew we wanted to include Belle. And then we're like, okay, well, Belle going into Hercules works great because Hercules has that, yearning, that wishing to go on a journey, and it had that nobility and those amazing lyrics by Dave Zippel, and we're like, that's great. So now we kind of had those three, and I said, but we really need, it can't all be Menken, and it can't all be that era. It can't all be the 90s, 2000s. And I said, we need something that's more recent, and we really felt, well, what's kind of the who's the more modern and quite frankly the more modern and younger, maybe not so younger, but a very different kind of Hercules, or a kind of young hero with big aspirations, and it had to be Moana. Not to mention I'm a huge Lin-Manuel fan, so
Sure.
so we kind of finally locked in on it being those 4 songs, and we said, well, now we've got to tell this story, and we really went through and one by one went through each line of each song and figured out, well, if this line from this character actually flows into this line from that character, it actually sounds like they're answering each other's questions, or they're finishing each other's sentences. So when you hear them at points saying like, how far I'll go, I guarantee I'll be strong, they're actually, it's almost like they're having a conversation with each other, and that was absolutely by design.
That's
Oh my gosh. This is incredible. I mean, the way he crafted this is absolutely insane. I love this. I'm speechless.
I mean, it's what happens when you give people a year to work at a 13-minute fireworks show. Well, you get some great stuff like that, right? You just the interaction back and forth. I mean, it flows so well. It's almost like a singular piece of dialogue.
Yeah.
But you can also look at it like a conversation, having it back and forth, and all these characters, really, really aspiring for something big. Kind of like an animator, right? It's like, I want to be the best animator I possibly can. I want this. I want adventure. I want, all this kind of stuff, and it flows through, perfectly. Again, this is the kind of the end of the first half here, and it's absolutely perfect. You've also seen on screen too the what is it? The Blue Fairy, and from what I understand, KC actually talks about how they were a little nervous about that, because it's always Tinkerbell, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, ooh, this is a new direction here. Will this actually play? And when you have When You Wish Upon a Star playing in that segment, and it's so Disney, right?
Yeah.
That you see in the front of every single live action film or animated film or whatever. It just brings the house down, because they really didn't know until they previewed it with cast members, and it was like, oh, okay, this really works.
Well, and it was a smart decision, and I don't know if this was the mindset behind it, but like Tinkerbell, yes, she started off in the films, Peter Pan, right? But Walt really utilized her in like the TV show, like the Disneyland TV show, and Wonderful World of Color with the ding at the very right. So right. Tink sort of became synonymous with the parks,
Yes.
and she's been an icon for the fireworks for decades. So she really, for me, even though she was technically a character in a film, when I see Tink, I associate her more with the parks. So I think that because this show is really rooted and paying tribute to Walt Disney Studios, I felt like the Blue Fairy was more appropriate because she doesn't have that same connection to the parks, and it felt more like an animation thing. And I know this is like kind of like just optics, because technically Tinkerbell is just as much Disney animation. I understand that, but I think that over the years she has become more synonymous with the parks. The Blue Fairy feels more like the animated studio. So I think it was a really good move to switch them out, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And it brings down the house. every
yeah.
single time.
Every
You
time.
hear it, see it, because it is so unique, right? We weren't necessarily expecting that.
No.
And the music plays, and it's like, oh my god, it's like the image that we've seen in front of these films for 30 years come to life, and it's like, oh, that's pretty incredible.
And the stardust going down Main Street, it's like almost like light speed, right? And it's just it just hits you in the face. It's like that scene is just, oh my god. Let's continue.
It's pretty great. It's pretty great.
It's awesome.
The quartet. It's just I gotta tell people it's perfect. It's like you can't criticize it. It is really perfect. But he talks about why they went that direction with a quartet and so forth. And remember, it's 13 and a half minutes. It's pretty tight. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We really decided to do that from the very get-go, and Jordan was on board, Michael was on board. I got to give a huge shout out to Alex Karukis, who did all the vocal arrangements and all those amazing intricate harmonies and everything for this particular part of the show and a lot of the show. And we work together all the time. He's really my music director, and so we all conceived of this very much together. And then we sort of chipped away at it and really molded it like clay until we got it to the point where it sort of felt like a brand new song with lots of things you recognize, but it's telling this great story from start to finish with, of course, this amazing huge ending that we thought, like, this is something that can stand on its own as a piece of art, but it's this piece of art that's made out of 4 of the most amazing classics ever written by the greatest composers and lyricists in history. And how do we then finish it, showcase it, and have it be sort of like the end of Act 1 and the end of sort of this launch into the rest of our story. And I think we, judging by the response, I think we did it, and I think we're successful. And yeah, it's one of the parts that I think and all of us, Alex, everybody else, we're the most proud of. And I think hopefully it's something that people are going to want to hear for a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
I know you're a metal fan, a guitar player, and when I think about bands harmonizing, I think of like the big 4 of thrash metal, all coming together. But in this way, for this basically new Disney composition, I thought it was just brilliant. I mentioned that because he was a guitar player. I guess there's an interview out there with Christopher Lennertz on YouTube out there, and he describes him coming up in the industry and what inspired him and so forth. He talks about, hey, he wanted to be a guitar player and copy Eddie Van Halen's Eruption and so forth, and getting into metal bands and so forth. So I was like, oh, they speak in my language right here. So that's why I kind of a little dumped that in there. But that's where that is actually coming from. He has that
Awesome.
kind of rising story. But go ahead, OG.
No, that's fantastic. I did not know that of him. That's pretty cool. Very
Cool. Yeah, he plays. He even self-admitted he plays guitar better than he does piano, and sometimes as a composer that can get a little tough, but he manages. Very, very funny.
Awesome.
And go ahead. You have another question for Chris.
Oh man, I just want to say that was like, wow, that was incredible. Like so much thought, and it's just that one. It's a decent part, but no wonder it's so perfect because I feel like you took most of your year to just think about that one part. That was incredible. So, chef's kiss. That was like, as Dre and I agree, that part is like literally perfection.
It's perfection. It can't. I've we as Disney fans, we break this stuff down and we critique it so much, and we become cynical and jaded to some things. And with that segment, I mean, it's just there's nothing there's nothing I can say to critique in any way. I've always told people, yeah, that's just perfect. It's just a perfect segment right there, and how you engage the audience and rapture the audience, even from the very get-go, using similar techniques with Snow White, I'm Wishing, and going into Sleeping Beauty. I Wonder it just brings the house down every single time. I mean, the gasps from seeing that concept art on screen become colorized, and the beautiful imagery that you see on Sleeping Beauty Castle and Main Street when that occurs is just wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we really, I think we knew we had something special, and we sort of just everyone trusted each other to sort of do their part and bring it to life. And every time someone heard a piece of music, an artist would let us know, oh my God, that inspires me to do this with the projection, or our pyro department would say, oh, well, what we could do here, because you made this amazing flourish when you got to this particular note, well, this is when we'll do a certain kind of blossoming firework or something. And it very much worked the other way, where we would see some of these amazing, early projection designs, and we would just go, oh my God, the sparkle and the way that it sort of, the way that it moves makes it feel like glistening, woodwinds. And so when we did the orchestrations and recorded the orchestra, we would actually feature, interpretations and orchestrations and instruments and techniques that sort of were very much in response to visual and audio and story designs that we had been hearing from the artists that we were, collaborating with. So it was very much a back and forth process for that whole, almost year period, where I think we all inspired each other to do things. And, and that goes back to what you said a couple minutes ago, which is like,
sure,
all of us were fans. Like, I am the most ridiculous Alan Menken, David Zippel, Lin-Manuel Lopez's, Richard Sherman. I am the hugest fan of all of their music, so much so that, like, I felt like it was the most humbling honor and and hugest obligation to take what they did and keep every bit of magic that they gave us and just craft it into something new, taking all the love that they put into what they did and being able to then craft it in a new way so a whole new generation can go to the park and experience it. And I know that's what I did with the music, and I know for sure that's what the animators and the artists and everyone dealing with all of the elements of the show really did that as fans. And that really goes back to having 100 years of magical animation to pay tribute to. And that was our goal from the get-go.
Pause it real quick, Dre, just for a second.
Go ahead.
He mentions, doing right by the Sherman Brothers and Alan Menken and what have you, and he did. And I've seen this show now twice, right? And both times I've watched it, the thing in the back of my mind every time is when Belle comes on, I wish Howard Ashman was here to see this.
Oh, I know.
I wish he was here to see this.
Oh.
And it's like he would be so enamored by what Christopher did here with this show. I mean, he's looking down, and he is really, really proud. I just wish he was still around to enjoy it. I mean, Christopher did a phenomenal job. He did right by every single person he mentioned there. The Sherman Brothers, Alan Menken, all of them. Incredible work. But I just wanted to say that because he,
And it's a monumental task because you got to think, and he goes into it. But I'll start us off here. It's not just the songs you choose from each piece, right? Or right. Featuring which movies where, but it's like what parts of movies do you feature? What parts of the pieces do you feature? That's what's really kind of tricky. And I guess they had like 30 animators from the studio actually zoom in. And they were just this big old Zoom session with all these people, and they just say like, okay, what inspired you? What do you really want to take away from this? What's your favorite piece of animation here or there, whatever? And they had a tremendous amount of responses, and you had to whittle that down in some way. That's a really tricky thing, but even to select that again, it's 13 minutes, guys. 13. That is so short. You got to cover 62 animated feature films. That's not an easy task, and he talks about it right here.
There we go.
That's absolutely incredible. Yeah, I mean, I believe it's an 80-piece orchestra and 16 lead vocalists, 33 voice choir to bring these kind of 18 Disney songs, plus a new song. It's Wondrous in there.
Right.
I mean, that's got to be a big kind of challenge, right? Because you only got about 13 minutes, right? And you have to cover 100 years of animation. You have to feature every single Disney animated film. 62 of them, including Wish, as you so noted. How do you even start to decide what comes in, what comes out when you have so many great songs to choose from?
How do you pick which segment you go longer than the other one?
Yeah, honestly, it's 13 and a half minutes, and I think that was the hardest part, because there is such a wealth of material. Mm-hmm. The lists of things we loved were so long that we really had to figure out, we can't show it all.
Yeah.
We can't play it all. We can't include every song. So at that point, we said, okay, we want to make sure we had it very much broken up into sections, almost like a symphony or an opera.
Okay.
And we knew there was, the opening song and the ending thing on both sides, and we knew that there was a nostalgic section, and we knew there was this setting off in a hero's journey, and then there was the flying, leaping section that then had a downturn, and we had this whole journey that was planned out. And so what we really figured out was, like, we knew roughly how long we wanted each section to be, and then we would go try to find songs that would give us the correct feeling and either the right tempo, or we would rearrange them in new tempos and new arrangements, like we did with First Time in Forever for Flying, which was very different than the version in the movie, but it was done in a way where I orchestrated it to be much more like a piece of flying score, like you'd see in a movie like Rocketeer or whatever else, and so for us, we started doing this, and then we really, there was a lot of time.
Just to clarify, I guess they broke the piece, the entire spectacular down to chapters, and so one of them was like Fly, for example. So they would get all the kind of the flying clips from a lot of these films, Peter Pan obviously being one of them, but also too like the Fantasia 2000 Whales, right? That would go up into outer space, not quite flying, but definitely evokes that kind of feeling right there, and so you have to grab stuff that's appropriate for that chapter, for that piece of the story, and that's also another consideration that you have to make that makes this a lot more challenging.
Well, and he, man, when he mentions that he composed the First Time in Forever, kind of like the rock, like how the Rocketeer theme is, right?
Yeah,
and that's one of my favorite pieces of music from Disney, is a Rocketeer theme. I mean, it's a really soaring, just kind of epic, really, really great piece of music. And the fact that he used that as his inspiration, it's kind of a deep cut a little bit. Rocketeer ain't too relevant right now. You know what I'm saying?
It's not. Should be, but it's not.
It should be, but it's not. And the fact that he said, you know what, that's my inspiration. I want to compose First Time in Forever in that kind of vein. Yeah. God, just spot on with that gut instinct that he has on just about everything I'm hearing here. I mean, absolutely incredible. But let's continue.
Let's go.
Where this show was, in the low 20-minute range, and we knew it couldn't be that long.
Oh man!
For so many reasons, and then it was really like carving away at a sculpture and being like, well, what can we carve away at and still get the feeling we need in our audience, and what has to stay? And part of it was we had to cut certain songs, and then other songs we made shorter. And the other thing that's one of the reasons we did so many medleys, whether it be, like you said, with Wishing and that whole section, which included When You Wish and all those things. One of the reasons is we didn't want to cut songs, and the only way to get it shorter was to actually have the songs, land on top of each other in a medley. And then once we realized that we had to do that, then we said, okay, well, how do we do that and keep telling our story? And that's when we really came up with this idea of having the different songs talk with each other in a conversation. And that, like you said, that happened a few times. And that was just to get more material in.
Very, very cool.
Now,
Ethan, go ahead.
for curious, because you had so many songs to choose, so many songs you said you had to cut off. Was there any mandates like from the higher ups at Disney saying you have to have this song in the show? I don't care where it is. You just have to represent this, like Encanto or something. Or did they give you complete control where you can choose whatever songs you wanted?
That's actually a really good question because we've kind of suspected that over the years. We've heard something to that effect over the years, especially with Chapek and Enchantment. From what I understand, Chapek had a lot of influence on that on that piece, right? And it was all about showing the new Disney, the new era, the new this, the new that, and it's like, yeah, but it's supposed to be for the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World, right? I mean, shouldn't it, kind of be appropriate for that and so forth? And there was definitely a disconnect, I think. So we have heard this before. OG, you want any thoughts?
No, we've discussed that many times that there has to be a mandate, in regards to what IP, because Disney's all about that synergy and like, okay, look. We got this movie coming out. We got the live action version of so-and-so coming out. So you gotta push the animated version on the fireworks show, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I mean, it's a company and they're trying to make money and they're trying to synergize. I totally get that. I mean, Walt Disney himself did that a lot of times. He named the castle Sleeping Beauty's Castle because the movie was coming out 4 years later,
Right.
So to assume there's a mandate, I don't think is a stretch, but let's see what do you have to say about that. I'm curious.
No, and I mean, who gets one of the longest segments just by herself? Deanna. It's like, oh, that's interesting, and not to impeach her or anything like that, not to impugn her, whatever. And it works beautifully in the piece for sure. But it is one of those things where it's like, okay, but let's go on.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know that there was any mandates from Disney as a whole. There were songs that Jordan and Michael in their initial pitch were like, I need this song in here because it does this for me dramatically. And quite honestly, Dos Oruguitos was one of them. And Jordan really wanted to make sure that was in there because he felt like that would be great towards the end of a show to come back from self-doubt. That was in there. And of course, When You Wish Upon a Star was very much, always in play earlier, because it's so iconic. And there was a handful of, everybody had favorites and songs that they really wished that would be in there. And so they fought for them. And then it was a very collaborative effort where we would come in every week and say, all right, we looked at the story again. Here's the songs that we think will tell the story we want to tell. And then we'd sort of, all try to cast doubt of like, okay, well, that's great, but does that tell the story as well as this other one?
Right.
Or is it too slow? What if, I understand that you want to tell you want to make this kind of emotion, but that's a slow song and we've been slow for a while. We need the energy to go up. Is there a faster, more energetic song that still gets the same emotion? And we would sort of like start to check songs off and put songs in higher up on the list until we got to the point where we were probably down in the mid 20s to 30 songs at one point. And that was probably when the show was 20 some minutes long. And then we're like, all right, well now how do we really cut it down? And we started doing some of our medleys and mashups, and we also started to have to be a little bit, what do they call it? Reckless and be like, we want this song, but we literally can't fit it in. And so we had to lose more and really come out with the ones that we thought told the story the best, and the ones that that would resonate with fans of all generations. And that was the other thing that may have been an edict, I think, was because we're telling 100-year story of Disney animation, we had to make sure that all the eras of history in Disney were represented well enough. So it didn't feel like it skewed too much in any one era, because our fans are going to be all different ages, and it's going to be grandparents and grandkids and people who people who remember when Snow White first came out, and there would be people who literally their first movie they ever went to was Encanto.
Right.
So we needed to sort of we needed to make sure we satisfied everybody's love of Disney animation, and we had to be really, respectful, and we had to honor that in a way that gave enough respect to every era of all these amazing movies that they made.
Yeah, that's a key point right there, because one of the biggest criticisms that I'm hearing from Will the Color One is they only go back 30 years. It's supposed to be Disney 100, and we only see, basically 90s on or whatever. And that's a big criticism, because it doesn't necessarily resonate with, the widest gambit of fans or guests in that respect.
And it shows too. It shows too, because over the years we've all made the assumption Disney's mandating this, but Christopher was able to get this done. He was able to put things in there that we haven't seen ever in any show.
Treasure Planet.
I mean, you're right. I mean, he got it done. So it kind of changes my perspective on this. Like, is it like a show like World of Color 1, which is kind of falling a little flat with fans?
Yeah.
Is it a Disney corporate mandate that's causing that, or is it a creativity issue? Maybe, right? Because it seems like Christopher's team had the flexibility to kind of put a lot of these deep cuts in there. What's going on with World of Color and other shows like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's they want to differentiate World of Color 1 from the original World of Color, which was very kind of reverential of multiple eras. Maybe they wanted to go in a different direction. Part of that was, well, we've had a lot of films come out since World of Color 1.0 made its debut, right? So for World of Color 1, maybe we go in this era or that era or whatever. I'm not sure. I really don't know. But it seemed like a misstep a little bit, and that's just some of these guys like Christopher and others keeping the audience in mind. I think really kind of helps that a lot. He also said, we got it down to like 20 minutes. Me, I'm like, where's that? Where's the audio for that? I want to hear that.
Can we get the Christopher Lennertz cut, please? Right?
Yeah, the composer cut.
The composer cut, please.
Exactly.
Let's continue.
And it's an incredible task. I mean, I believe every single section was Casey Wilkerson, I believe, described it as kind of chapters, right? And you have like fly, and you have fall, and so forth, and so things kind of have to fit. I can see kind of how it's like you got to be rigid. It's like, hey, I'd like to include this song, but it doesn't quite fit the story where we're going, the transitions, and so forth. And that's a really tough task, because you might be, everybody kind of has their sacred cow, but we can't feature them all, and that's that's got to be an incredible process, and
so many songs, like crazy.
So many songs. I wanted to ask you, I don't know if you can comment on this. If you can't, it's totally fine. It's totally cool. But I wanted to ask you really fast. We've seen a casting call for a show at the Hyperion at Disney California Adventure, and I saw your name pop up as part of that whole thing. You don't have to go, you don't have to give us details on the theme or whatever. Yeah. But is that an accurate thing you're working on right now? Should we be excited?
You absolutely should be excited. I can tell you that much.
Okay.
And yes, absolutely, I'm working on it literally day and night right now.
Really?
And all I can tell you is it's going to be amazing. And no, I can't tell you what it is or what it's about.
No, that's fine.
But it will come out. Probably in the not too distant future. But I will say that it's going to be it's going to be really special. To that theater's been closed since COVID.
Yeah.
And I think this, when everyone hears what it is and imagines and sees like the details and then goes and experiences it, I think it's going to be the perfect show to sort of reopen the theater and just bring a lot of magic to life that Disney fans, I think seem to really want. And I think they're going to be excited when it happens. But I will say, it's going to be really great, and it's a big concept. And we are definitely shooting for the stars on this one, and I think it's going to be something that people are going to really enjoy.
It's such a big deal for.
Okay.
Yes. So what does that mean right here? That is the big question. Now we've heard a lot about Hercules, right? And I think Walt Disney World News Today actually had a piece, matching up every single, casting for matching up with Hercules and so forth. And that's the big speculation right now. And so we've talked about that on the show. You've heard us talk about it. But
Right.
I wanted to go over some of the other possibilities because Dusty recently walked through California Adventure and was saying this.
We have heard conflicting information about that. We had one source that says absolutely 100% is going to be Rogers the Musical. 100% knows for certain. No.
Now that and that was something that I've been hearing too from some various sources. I think Mouse Info has been really kind of bullish, like, that would be cool to see. It had a good response from D23 Expo, the little snippet that they performed there. Oh, gee, what would you feel about a Marvel show going in there?
Okay, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I would be open to it because I think that a Marvel show would bring something unique to that space, right? Like we've seen a lot of fairy tale, Aladdin, Frozen kind of things. I would like to see something different. What can you do with Marvel, right? What can you do with Marvel? We haven't seen anything like that from Disney really in the parks with Marvel. So I think that'd be fascinating. I'm open to it. Rogers the Musical would be actually pretty funny. That's an interesting concept. The other thing too is, what does that mean for the Hyperion Theater in general, right? Because the elephant in the room is this: the Hyperion Theater is a big space, and it sits right next to Avengers Campus, and they right next to it. They already utilize the outdoor area for like seating for I think it was like Pim's Test Kitchen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Avengers Campus is slowly already encroaching in. So what are the ramifications of a Marvel show, whether it's Rogers the Musical or something else, kind of moving into that spot? Is the Hyperion itself going to be annexed into Avengers Campus, kind of swallowed up by Avengers Campus and become like a Marvel theater where maybe they have things like Rogers the Musical, but maybe they also have Marvel stunt shows like the Bourne show over at Universal in Orlando, stuff like that. I mean, Marvel, more than any other IP that they could put in that building, I think potentially can mean a lot going forward. It's not just about that show in particular necessarily. It's about the future of the entire building. But what do you think, Dre?
It's interesting. It's if they decide to go Marvel, it's a bold move. It's it's something I've heard concepts for people kind of speculating on what they'd want to see. Like you could have Doctor Strange flying around, right? Or you could have Spider-Man zipping through, and you could have a kind of an action stunt show, not unlike Bourne, right? And it's an interesting, it's a really interesting concept in my mind because that is kind of almost a Broadway theater type venue, right? And it's the place that people go to be swept off their feet and not just performance with song as well. Does that lend itself to entertainment like that? I really don't know because we've never really had it in there. So it's definitely an offshoot, and like we've all kind of speculated on here as well. Like it's the proximity is so close to Avengers Campus. Right. Is it time that we go in a different direction and start looking at other things? I think the possibility of it becoming a Marvel venue from here on out and actually being absorbed into the Avengers Campus fold or whatever Marvel land that they expand into, because we kind of know that the Hollywood land area is probably going to get absorbed by Marvel at some point.
Right.
I think that's a distinct possibility.
No, it is, and Christopher was saying in that fantastic interview, it could have been nothing, but he made a point, kind of like we're really shooting for the stars. And I'm like, when I heard that, I'm like, what does he mean by that? Is he trying to tell us something? Is he kind of winking at us saying, hey, stars, right? And we were on the phone earlier about this, and I think it was you that brought up, like, what if it's Guardians of the Galaxy, right? I mean, that would do very well in that theater, because Guardians is very much rooted in music. You can have a real fun. Oh, it would be a blast in there to have something like that. And so that's an interesting possibility. But the cool thing about Marvel, though, the possibility of turning this into a Marvel theater is that it wouldn't be just a theater for musicals. Like we talked about today, you can turn it into like a Bourne stunt show thing, and then the next show could be a musical, and then the next show could be another stunt show. Marvel, believe it or not, has a lot of various things they can do with that space that maybe you can't necessarily do if you do a bunch of fairy tales. A lot more variety of entertainment. Fascinating. I'm telling you, if it's Marvel, there's something going on with that theater.
Well, even Guardians of the Galaxy, right? We've seen kind of, obviously it's synonymous with music, but we've kind of seen music performed in the Guardians world and really working in the form of like the Christmas special, right?
Right.
Where you have performances dotted throughout, and it works, right? And what I now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, ooh, how's that going to work without James Gunn? so that's an interesting question there too. Shooting for the stars, though, that's a really interesting quote there that he would include. Maybe it's something like that. I'm not really sure, but the possibilities are flowing now that now that this is actually coming back in, and this proximity is so close to Avengers Campus, and then you have people like Dusty Sage, for example, from Mice Chat saying, "Hey, could go in this direction."
Yeah, it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Now, I want to just give a huge shout out to Christopher Lennertz for going on Theme Park Wizards channel and sitting down with you guys for a half an hour plus talking shop. I was really, really impressed with him. And really, it's kind of we've seen this over and over again, like the musical talent that has been brought into the Walt Disney Company, whether it's Christopher, whether it's Howard Ashman, Alan Menken. The musical wing of the Walt Disney Company, so to speak, really understands the company like no other. It's been proven over and over again. So hopefully Christopher is open to a little more responsibility in a couple of years and becomes our next CEO. I would absolutely love that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I was able to. The conversation continues. There's a little bit more of it, but if you want to see it, without all our incessant pausing, you can go ahead and do so on Theme Park Wizards channel. At the end there, I kind of asked him, I said, hey, can we get an interview with you after the show in the Hyperion actually premieres? Get his thoughts on it, his take on it. And he said he'd absolutely love to. So cannot wait to speak to him again. OG, hopefully you'll join us for that, because I think this is going to be a very, no matter what happens to the actual Hyperion, what happens inside, we now know for sure, as confirmed by Chris himself, something is actually absolutely going in there. It's being worked on day and night, he says, putting a lot of hours into it. It's going to be phenomenal. Look, Wondrous Journeys is fantastic, right? He also did a Share the Wonder song for the Disney 100 Mickey and Friends Cavalcade recently. That was also great. The Disney's using this guy a lot. I think it's for a reason, right? And anything he touches, hey, you know what? I'm gonna trust him. So we definitely got to get him back on and talk about that. His thoughts on that project as well.
No, 100%. Now I gotta let you go, because if I'm not mistaken, you're gonna be appearing on WDW Pro's channel in a little bit.
Yes,
or recording, not live, but recording with him.
Right. Yeah, recording. I have quoted some internal figures from the company. Apparently, they did some internal polling, some internal surveys, asking folks their opinion on Disney and so forth. Because let's be honest here, Disney's been taking some lumps lately, right? And so where are those lumps actually coming from? Well, what I had heard was it came from two different places. They were losing ground in two different places. One was the young families with young children, right? Because of the value or the perception of value from the Disney product, specifically with the parks and so forth, how they're so expensive. It was kind of turning them away. And the other demographic was the crowd over 50 because of the politics of the situation, right? And look at how the Disney has kind of responded to both those things. We just did a whole video about the accountability aspect, but we're also seeing, the addition of Tier 0 days for Disneyland, right? We saw the parking fee stripped from Walt Disney World Resorts and so forth, right? And this kind of this perception of value has really changed that they want to put out there from the company. And so I kind of knew this was pretty accurate. Well, we just had The Wrap actually go in and put out an article talking about all about the RCID and how that poll that I was hearing about was very influential in Disney's response to the RCID situation. That is very, very interesting. And if you want to hear more, gotta go over to WW Pro's channel.
Yep, check it out. Friend of the channel, Pro. He's been really good to the OG team, and we love and respect Pro. So absolutely head over there. When the video is up, I'll share it on social media and everything like that. So I think it'll be a really good time. But Dre, Dr. Dre, producer Dre, Vast Guy, host of the Freshly Squeezed Show here on the channel. I want to thank you, brother, for coming on. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Hey, best place to find me is going to be at Vast Guy on Twitter. It's right down there. Should just go ahead and type it in. It should pop up for, as Christine Waysons McCarthy would say, for all the
robust
discussions right there. And if you want to see me, I guess I'm in a couple of places. Theme Park Wizards channel, WW Pros channel, but the best place to find me. The do you have the Walt quote there?
I do. I do have the Walt quote, and it's actually Walt. It's not an AI.
That's right.
And there's the biggest bargain of all.
For the biggest bargain of all, it's going to be right here at Orange Grove 55, where we have some great shows, Story Geek, Citrus Corner, Orange Nerd, the original brand, OG 55 himself, and my show as well, Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh, right from the Grove. I think that's everything, OG.
Perfect. And in honor of shooting for the stars,
fly me to the moon.
There you go.
Can't wait for that Hyperion show. That's going to be an absolute banger. I am really, really excited. Dre, thank you for joining. And again, thank you to the Theme Park Wizard for allowing us to share that amazing interview. Really awesome stuff. Again, check out Wizard, his YouTube channel. It's linked down below. Thank you all so much for watching OG 55. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.